We would like to ask if everybody would quickly take their seats. Thank you.
Good afternoon, brother.
Mother Staton, do we have permission to proceed with our next presentation?
Yes.
Thank you, Mother. We would ask that all stand in honor of our elders and remain standing until our elders have been seated. Them for permission to continue to proceed with our program. I'd like to introduce Dr. Lurleen Baker Kent.
Wow. Thank you very much for welcoming us. And I've been elevated today to Dr. Lurleen Baker Kent. That's kind of neat, nice honor. But I'm Lurleen Baker Kent, and I'm the Executive Director of the Center for Excellence in Urban Teaching. You probably have seen the sign outside. I have the honor to be the head mother of the house. And I'd like to take an opportunity to introduce you to the panelists that's going to be before you. Just to share with you what we're going to do. It's 2:30 now, and we were supposed to go from 2 to 3. So Michael, how long do we have? Shall we stay within 3?
We need to close around 3:10.
3:10, okay. So we're going to close at 3:10, so this is what we're going to do. We're each going to take about 3 minutes, the panel, not myself, because I'm not going to speak that long. And then after we speak, we're going to ask each other a couple of questions. And have just a family chat like we used to do in the old days. And they're going to just chat with each other and ask each other a few questions. And then you're going to get the opportunity to ask us a few questions about how we can be more involved and help you. So, before me, I have a person that's been around a long time, and you heard her this afternoon, Dr. Bravada Garrett Santa. I guess I pronounced it right. Sanya. Now see, this is a cultural differences here. Then a person that's been around here just a little long period of time, and that's Mahmoud Al-Kati, and everybody knows Mahmoud. And a long time is Kwame McDonald. And the person that's been around a long time is Dr. Josie Johnson. All of us are coming to you as elders of the community because of our sole commitment to you as our people, to you as our community. And we realize as elders that unless we are free and get a true understanding of our heritage and our roots, we will not even help to make America great. Unless we are free, white people can never be free. The world can never be free. So as long as you know that you have a mission here on earth, I had the opportunity of going to Africa, and it was one of the best experiences I have had in my life. You feel the anger, you feel the pain in the walls of the castles and the caves. But one thing you come away with knowing for sure, but for the grace of God, I would not be here on this earth. There was no way possible that any of us could have even survived if God didn't have something on this earth for you to do. And we have to search it, and we have to find it. We have to create it in our schools. We have to create it in our souls, in our church, in our everyday relationship to one another. And by God, if I never leave one thing with you, never pass each other without nodding and saying hello. That is a gift of acknowledgement to God that I know you here. And you taught that long time ago. So that's one thing I'd like to say. The first person I'd like to have come to the podium would be Elder Josie Johnson.
Good afternoon. When Michael invited me to be a part of this, I felt deeply honored to return to this very important and annual event. I think I may have been a part of the first 25 years ago, and periodically after that. But it is just wonderful to know that something could stay together for 25 years. What I said I'd like to share with you this afternoon, and I promise to take just the 3 minutes, some of the things that I, as an elder, that I think I've learned about our struggle and our sense of justice as a people. And our good sister Garrett identified so many of them at noon today, so that it's really a repeat of many of her themes that I'd like to share with you. Because I think that many things have to be said over and over and over again so that we can understand it. I guess I think that it's a challenge to be a minority in a majority culture. And that challenge is represented in many, many ways. And I think that we have to face the challenge. One of the things I'm real committed to have us understand as a people is that our plates are so full that sometimes we take on too many things. And therefore, you don't feel the satisfaction or the completion of any of it. Because every time we take one thing off, 2 or 3 are replaced by it. So one of the things I would like to share with you as your elder is to try going to be understanding of what you can do. You. Collectively, we can do a lot of things, but individually, we have to understand what our particular strength and contribution can be. I think we have to be careful to avoid what I call distraction. It is so easy to be distracted, and I urge you, as your elder, to try and avoid being distracted. I think we have to also, in my judgment, try to integrate the history right now, what's going on with us right now, and what has gone on with us in the past. Try to figure out how to understand that, and to understand the new facts that are presented to us. Understand what is going on right now and its relationship to the history and new strategies that you may have to develop to address those new experiences right now. I think also I want to ask you to be careful not to buy into the myths that are misinforming you about who we are as a people. Issues of education have been historically important to us. Many people out there in the larger community don't know that. So what they do is tell you that you're not interested in education, that you don't come from a culture and a history of education, that your communities don't care about education, and they make you feel our bright young people right here at this university, that you are somehow unique, separate and apart from your people. Right? And that is not the case. And I want you to hold on to that and remember that you come from a long history of well-educated, interested, enthusiastic about learning people. I'm also asking that you be very careful, that you not allow other people to define who you are. We have a tendency, because we've been oriented this way, it's not new, it's not with your generation, to want to be accepted, to want to be approved by majority members, whether they are whomever they are. And you get confused about who you are and what you are about. And you can begin to associate your attitude about things, measuring it relative to other people's acceptance. I urge you, know who you are, whose you are, and therefore keep your sense of identity and value. The sister spoke about connection. It is critical, in my judgment, that we stay connected. What does that mean? It means understanding your relationship one to the other. It really is a connection that makes us successful. We have to stay connected. Listen to Grandma's story. Listen to the teachers who had great hope for you. Remember what your teacher and the man at the corner store and the person in the beauty shop, barber shop said about you and their hope for you. Remember that. We also have to try and remember to renew our common goals. We have common goals. That's freedom for our people, love protection, concern for our children, passing on the kind of history that they have to survive. That's our common goal. We have to rededicate ourselves. I tell you this as your elder, because we go through it every day. Those of us who are your elders here, rededicating ourselves to our struggle, because it gets tiring. We get beat up and beat down so much, you have to be rededicated. And I urge you to record. Keep a record, my young brothers and sisters. Write down what you are experiencing. Write it down. Take 5 minutes each night before you go to bed and record the highlights of that day. Because in a few days, you'll have a collection of things that you can think about and discuss. And I thank you for letting me share this with you this afternoon.
We're going to have now the first longest in the crowd, Dr. Brevard Garrett.
Malcolm X once said, a man can't lead a revolution until he has experienced one in himself. I think we're about to have a revolution. When Florida voters went to those entered their ballots, they didn't imagine that they would never be counted. And we know the renewal of the Voting Rights Act will be coming up in 2007. But I want to let you know, because I look at the internet like a lot of y'all, and I know that you're hearing that we're going to lose our votes in 2007. Have any of y'all heard that? But we know that our vote was guaranteed with the 15th Amendment, and they'll have to kill us to stop us from getting a vote. We need a revolution. So no matter who's in Congress or what they decide, we have to secure our own destiny. And it's just like a woman who once got a Cadillac, and the man mistakenly gave it to her because he misread what she had put in. She really just wanted something like a Camry. But she got in that Cadillac, and it felt so good, and she could stretch out, and everybody was stopping and looking. And the man called her and said, "You need to bring that Cadillac back." She said, That's the way it is with us in our rights. No way. So I come today to connect mental health with voting rights, because you see the funding dollars that go to help kids, adults, and families deal with mental health issues. They're passed out, those funds are passed out through Congress. And see, we don't connect the fact that a lot of us as African Americans have mental health problems. You don't have to be talking to a light bulb and thinking that you're Jesus to get help. And I'm here to tell you that there is help. There's pain that we experience from child abuse, from bad relationships and bad decisions. A lot of us are still in what Iyanla Vanzant calls spiritual special ed. We keep repeating the same thing over and over and being insane and expecting a different result. You can get some help for that. I'm serious. So to come to see a psychologist like me, you don't have to be talking to light bulbs or thinking you walk on water. Every school, almost every school I know has a cancer center. And it's free, honey. When you get out of school, it costs $125 an hour. Free, $125. Now, later, duh. You see what I'm saying? So do it now while they're getting the money out of your tuition and fees. wanted to just address about our culture is we're ashamed to admit that we have problems. Somehow people think that if you say, oh, the girl broke my heart, and I'm a weak man, I ain't nothing but a winner, that's gonna really, really stop you from getting help. The truth is, hearts get broken every day. Promises get broken in relationships. We're all developing, we're all becoming. And along the way, we sometimes mess up. I like to talk to people about relationships, because to me it's a strong connection between the relationship that we have with our Creator and that we have with each other. I talk to women all the time, young women, old women, people looking for love in all the wrong places and for all the wrong reasons. And I find that they have lost hope, and they always think, oh, if I don't take this and tolerate this, I won't ever make it beyond this relationship. I better keep him and work with it. And I'm not saying that, you have to try on boyfriends and girlfriends like, you try on shirts at the mall. Please don't. They get all musty and sweaty. But the truth is, relationships require faith in yourself. All these songs about I was half, not whole, until he came in my life, and that is just so sick. Because if you limping, who want to broke down, don't have any idea what you want to do with your life till I tell you. Like on that show, Coming to America, she said, whatever you like. Yeah. Nobody wants to be that way. We have to have a sense of self. We have to have a sense of who we are. And it begins in early childhood. And for children who are abused, they don't get it because they get to see that they're punching bags or sexual objects. Then they get to be adulthood and they still get to see their punching bags or sex objects. So we have to realize that our mental health as a people is really critical. And if you don't know about it, many of the people in the prison system, they're not there because they did so much bad. They have mental health issues. And lately, in case you haven't heard, if you have any kind of mental health issue, serious like bipolar disorder, which is what we call manic depression, high highs, low lows, if you're schizophrenic and you can't see, you think things are after you or people are after you, and you have those problems, the police are apt to shoot you. But you don't have to go to the extreme to reach out, because you're not here alone. We're here for each other, with each other, and we can heal together. Thank you. I am so blessed that these people have been in my life for as long as I've been in Minnesota. And it's just so neat to have them here to share them with you. The next we'll have Dr. Mahmoud El-Kati. Dr. El-Kati. This is our thoughts from Professor here. He might just want to sit and chat with you. Is that what you want to do?
Test, good. Yeah, I want to do this in the interest of time. It'll take time to walk from here to there. I want Mike to, I hope she's here. If this eldership means anything, I wish you would be good enough and kind enough to give us a grace period to interact with their indulgence, of course. That ought to be. I think in America, there's so many things that have been invented, like time. It's a sharp, Americans have a sharp sense of time. Let me tell you, time is a neutral variable. You can do anything you want with it. It doesn't really exist. You create it. You understand? You make time. You produce time, says the Africans. And when you care about something, you make the time to do it. That's the way it goes. And I think this whole thing about this is too serious for us to do it like this. I'm going to talk fast, so listen fast. Okay? Try to say a couple. The first thing I want to say is this. This conference is celebrating its silver anniversary. That's a generation. And Mike and others should be applauded for making this happen. think we can make it better. And I want to make a modest proposal to you, those of you who are willing to join. And Mike says it's okay to initiate this. I want to propose 2 mini conferences held leading up to this conference in spring and the fall, so that we can make it broader. It's already good. We want to improve the quality first and then the quantity. We need a greater cross-section of people here, like our ministers, especially, who've been the soul of our culture, no matter what you think of them. That's the truth, Ruth. They have been the soul of our culture. So we need to, I have a lot of things to say about that. But what I want to ask you, what little I said has any appeal to you? I want you, Kelly, would you raise your hand? Would you see this? Raise your hand. Here's the lady over there. If that has any appeal to you, give her your name, rank, and serial number, your name, address, and so forth. I will contact you about trying to put this stuff together. We got to do something. We got to continue. Like anything, you have to retool, remodel, reframe it to make it healthier and stronger. We need more of every kind of people of every age, across the generation, every kind of talent to get in this struggle, because this is going to be the decade that explodes for us in the way that the 1960s exploded around black people's fundamental human rights, kicked the civil rights movement, changed the country forever off. Reparations is going to do the same thing, and you need to understand that. This is the bottom line. We're going for broke. This is what it's all about. All this struggle is getting to this question, is whether or not African people are authentic human beings. That's the question, you know. And if we are due what we do, like all people who have been abused by a system and a government. That's international law. Now, in the United States of America, there are countries. This is not the bloodiest country in the world, I'm not saying that. It's not, the history of this country is not more bloody than other countries, but it's bloody. It is not more criminal than other countries, but it's criminal. It's not better or worse than France or Germany or whatever, but it's different, and it's different for several reasons. Not the least of which is you have a slavocracy evolving in a democracy. 2 things happen at the same time. This is the house of refuge for most people. For us, it's the house of bondage. You cannot deny that. No matter how much you don't like what I'm saying, you can't deny it. You may not like it, but you can't deny it. I agree with the politicians when they say, give me your tithe, your poor, your huddle man, and yearning to breathe free, send thee the wretched refuge from your teeming shore. I live my life beside the golden door, the Statue of Liberty. That's okay, George Bush. But that's not me. My ancestors were brought here to create wealth and to make this country rich. That's a fact. We got to face that. Jimmy Baldwin said it best. He said that black and white Americans, for excellent reasons of their own, haven't the faintest desire to look back because they view the past as quite horrible, and it will remain horrible so long as they refuse to assess it honestly. So we both, it's not just a white thing that's scared. White people aren't the only ones that's scared of the truth. They are. We are too. Both of us are. We've got to face the fact that our ancestors were slaves. And we should never be ashamed of them. We should only be ashamed of having once been ashamed, if we ever were. Because these were magnificent people who created this magnificent, intangible culture which moves and shakes the world through you. It just didn't happen that way. We came out of a fantastical experience, which proves that man shall endure. That's what we proved. That the human spirit will prevail. That's what we proved. Writers have written about it all over the world. I was on a program with one of Gandhi's grandchildren, Mahatmas, that is. And the thing that impressed him most about America was the life of Mary McLeod Bethune. And he spoke to an audience of 300 people, and most of them had never heard of her, including some black people, But this man 10,000 miles away said, she inspired my life. This African American. Yeah, one of Gandhi's children. You understand what I'm saying? We don't know. We have to discover ourselves. To be black does not mean you know black. Let's get rid of that. We've got to study. Black is not me. Black is not Kwame. Black is not Joseph. Black is not Sister Garrett. Black is generations of people. Black is history. Black is culture. Black is peoplehood. Black is ethnicity. It is not simply a color. We're not just a color, we're a culture group. In fact, we are multicolored people arbitrarily called black. But that's not the reality. The material reality is our experience, not my pigmentation, the experience. Go down Moses, tell Pharaoh, let my people go. Ezekiel saw the wheel way in the middle of the air. Did my Lord deliver Daniel? Why not every man? Did Joshua fit the battle of Jericho? That's who we are. And the people, that's a peculiar experience, time, space, specific experience to this nationality. We're not a race, we're a nationality. We're a modern nationality. Yes, you've got to challenge these false definitions. But first you've got to get some fat on your head. You've got to study. You've got to respect the black experience. You've got to make it something more than a song and a dance. You've got to believe in culture. Because that's really not enough time for us, Lurleen. Let's be real. Let's be real. Yeah, let's help out. You know, with your indulgence. And I won't take but a minute more.
Okay.
Well, we have to. This doesn't happen every day, and we have to take advantage of this rare opportunity. So what am I saying? I think, yes, study is the number one thing. We've got to understand who we are. We don't. Black people are confused. We don't understand the nature of our experience. I'm telling you, we are a head case, man. We don't really understand ourselves. Do you know, I teach in a high school, and they're bright youngsters, no matter what the statistics say. But when I mention the word oppression, for instance, they don't know what it means. These are bright 12th graders. And I'm expressing that's what
They'll be able to ask you questions, you'll be able to dialogue. We probably move on because Bishop is here. He's scheduled for 3 o'clock. And I know we made ourselves.
Thank you very much.
If any of you get a chance, try to hear Dr. Mankato because he can teach us all so much. He has so much depth. And he studies, and you can go to Mankato and take his courses. He's awesome. And next, I would like to have Kwame McDonald to speak for about 3 minutes.
I'm usually a 3-hour speaker, but in interest of being a member of the team, I'll keep it down to 3. First, I want to let you all know who and what I am. When I went to Ghana in 1968, I went over there, my name was Jim. I had shirts and ties, dapper. When I came back, my name was Kwame, and this is what I wore, and have ever since. Now, why am I telling you that? Because I'm still trying to Africanize, re-Africanize myself. These Americans got you calling yourself African Americans. I am an African in America, not an African American. And to prove it, look at my tax record. The tax man got to catch me every year. But as Malcolm said, just because you put kittens in an oven, it does not make them biscuits. So just because my mama was born in America, and me, her eldest, was also born here, does not make me an American. When we are accorded all of the rights and privileges of the Americans who run this country, I will gladly redesignate myself as an African American. But not until then. Mark, I think I have to disagree with you just a little bit when you said that we went from slaveocracy to democracy. Now maybe I misheard you.
You certainly misheard.
Okay.
I misspoke. I said that a democracy and a slaveocracy grew up side by side under one government. That's what I want to point. So if I either misspoke or you misheard.
Very good. Well, we're going to straighten it out. This is not. This is still a slaveocracy. And those of you who don't yet have your credit card, don't get it. Because if you want to get free, that's the first step. Now, those of you who have credit cards, and as Mark Moon earlier said, don't be afraid that our parents and foreparents and grandforeparents were slaves, because you're still a slave. Wow. If you run around here, only thing you got on your mind is to get you a job with the biggest white man you can get. That is not freedom. Because one of the things that we know, for instance, if you look at the NBA stars, all that money they making, where does that money end up? Right in the hands of the slave owners' children, in their very pockets. So let me just close by saying, I hope I'm within 3 minutes.
I got you on target. I'm letting you go.
Okay. The most important relationship is that relationship with yourself. You need to know and love yourself, and don't let anybody make you think you ain't who you really are, cause you okay as you are. And they'll have you around here, or they'll have you around here, and I hate to do this to sisters, but brothers is guilty too, but let's just say it. God is the greatest artist. Am I right? Yeah. Then why do we mess with his stuff? Stretching this and pinching that and straightening the other. I mean, why do we do that? Trying to look like somebody else? Okay. It's a sin.
Okay.
We need to be who we are.
We have to close it up now. Talk on and on and on and on. But we have the bishop in the house and we have to honor him in his time. And initially I said to you that I would let the panel chat, but what I'm going to do now, we have 5 minutes where I'm going to let you ask questions of them. Okay, so I'm opening up the question from you in the audience to the panel. Yes?
I guess we should probably just get your contact information if you want to like email or maybe another discussion that we could probably set up during some break that we have if any of you would be willing. Because I know last year, like 5 of us sat down with Professor Matt Wood for 3 hours and it wasn't a scheduled thing. So maybe we could do that afterwards and that might just be a better situation.
Anybody want to have to
Okay.
We'll do that. Okay. Way back in the back there.
I wanted to see if you guys could give me a
Move on to the next one.
Since you know I care a lot about this subject, we all do. I think before there can be reconciliation, there has to be equality and equity. And the issue is, in any relationship, there has to be balance. And when one is over the other, there's always going to be a dominance. Until we get equal rights, equal vote, equal power and assistance, economic equality, I'm afraid that reconciliation is really something that we can dream for, work toward, but it really won't truly exist, because it can't.
Does anybody else want to?
Just very quickly, the word I would use to shift it's not reconciliation.
You got a powerful group here.
It's conciliate. You know, rec, R-E.
It is a wreck.
It means go back to something, return to something that was, and that has never happened. We're still trying to conciliate, and I still maintain that until African people, like literally force these people to recognize them as human beings, it will never, ever be over. The real meaning of being human is to have a history. History is what makes people human. And when other people recognize your history, that means you're human. They respect you. And that's why there's so much energy spent on suppressing black people's histories, even the history we make now. History says Dr. Carter G. Woodson is another word for humanity, because when you give a man a history, you give him a personality. When you give him a personality, you extend him humanity. When you give him humanity, that means if you recognize your humanity, that also recognize mine. This means there's a limit to what you can do to me and keep a clear conscience.
Okay, we have
Powerhouse here. One of the things I worry about as we begin these new efforts, not new, but renewed efforts, is that we never fully understand what are we talking about. What is it we want to recapture, or to capture, or to be forgiven, or to forgive? And I think I would like to see our young people sit down, talk together, understand what are we talking about. I say to Mark Luther Kwame often that I think we elders did not do our job in the 60s because our kids did not know what we were talking about capturing ourselves, understanding who we are, gathering. And I think that it's critical. I beg you, get together with your friends, and with supervisors like Mahmoud and others to understand what it is we're talking about. Understand it, rather than just get active in something. Spend the time.
First step to any kind of conciliation is conciliation with self. If you don't believe in yourself, you're not going to be able to reconciliate or conciliate with anybody else. The other thing, you, all of us, must come from a position of power. Me personally don't want to be equal to nothing I see. I mean, them white folks equal to that? Let's be real. I do not want to be equal to that. I want to be more than that, above that. My goals are higher, and they're not limited to earthly goals.
Thank you. I'd really like to thank you for your questions and your time, and I'm really sorry that you're feeling like you're rushed and there's more you want to give. They told me I could take 10 more minutes so I can ask for questions. 10 more minutes. I got the signal. Yes, sir.
This is my first time being in this conference here. I'm from Kenya.
Nobody got it.
Doing fine.
You do good.
James Stein,
But I'll be glad to be here and hearing the issues that are being addressed here. But also, I would like this opportunity to challenge the organizers and also the people in the panel, because I think one of the objectives and goals of Pan-African movement is to bring people in Africa and both all diasporas together. And so I think there's need to address issues locally. I mean, there's issues going on in Africa and you don't hear about it. When people are killing each other in Rwanda, it's not a big deal. that when our friends in Kosovo are fighting, we want to give them help. And I think this issue that this is addressed from this basic point here, and that is meaning for Africa.
So, who want to respond to that, panelists?
I appreciate what you're saying, brother. And Dugu, part you relating to why I want us to have too many conferences. Now, I've been around this conference since its inception, and we've tried to impress upon people that this is a Pan-African conference, that it Pan means all Africans across boundaries and that sort of thing. It means that you're an international person. That's what a Pan-African is. He doesn't draw these artificial boundaries between he and other people. We've been hard to get, it's been difficult to get that across. About 4 or 5 years ago, myself and Mufindisi Joe Young wrote a pamphlet trying to explain it to people, and somehow that disappeared. And you're not blaming anybody for that, okay? Because Mike is doing a wonderful job, and it's impossible to do this in the first place. But the point is, you're right. We need to have people who understand that black people are a world people. And this is a worldwide question. It's not just we are part of an African family. But we're not the family because we live in the United States.
The thing I was going to say to the brother is that one of the things I think about Pan-Africanism is to realize what I was saying earlier about consubstantiation. And the fact is that as African people all around the world, when I see my husband's from Nigeria, as a lot of you know, and I see people who immigrate here, and even when I go to Africa, one of the things I see is that throughout the world, somewhere there's a belief of white supremacy.
Yes.
And somehow when our brothers and sisters come here from other countries, Ghana or wherever, there's a distance that we place between us that's artificially the reproduction of the internalized oppression that we carry. And so for me, I think for our own health, for our own survival, we have to realize that when we say African, we are African people. And we have to really go to realize what that means, which is an embracing of a cultural value system that integrates everybody from the child to the elder as valuable and important. So I appreciate what you said, brother. And more than that, I want to challenge all the people at school. When you hear people say Africans, don't just be thinking about what you saw on Tarzan and National Geographic.
Well, I can't say it often enough. I just think it's important for you to take the time to understand what the current issues are and their relationship to the history. We have a tendency, our discipline sometimes keeps us from hanging in there and really getting to the core and the depth of things. We can sometimes be surface oriented. I urge you, even if you cannot do the 2 or 3 sessions, and I know you will before the next, get together. Make that a part of your life and your assignment. Understand our connection one to another. And you being here, brother, can help us do that. For those who have not had an opportunity to go to Kenya or other parts of Africa, understand what it means and where we have come from.
Okay, let's take another question.
What? Y'all don't have any questions?
What about comment?
Okay.
Just a comment.
Okay, just a comment and then we'll close down.
Dr. Johnson?
Yes.
Okay, Dr. Johnson emphasized the importance of education. Well, if you don't know, my name is Akinyede Akinson. That's my friend, my partner, my spouse over there. But then the situation is, I want to emphasize the importance of education to you from an African perspective. When I was growing up, I was about 16, 17, and this will take me please slowly in about just 70 more seconds. My 2 kid brothers went to college, what you guys call university, just about 2 or 3 years before me. Growing up within that society, there's so much pressure for you, not only to excel in education, you are basically ashamed when your kid brother get ahead of you education-wise. So when you hear people telling you you are people that do not value education, that's a blatant lie.
Yes.
You value education, and education will give you the knowledge you need to know to reorient yourself. Thank you.
You know, one very quick thing. As your elder, I keep saying that. What has troubled me so much that I've observed in the last 15 or so years is to have young African American students feel that there is something wrong, or you are acting white if you do well, that you're acting white if you're on the dean's list, that you're acting white if you speak correctly, so that people can understand you. And I'm saying that's because we don't know our histories. And we couldn't have the kind of people that we have in Africa. We came from Africa if they weren't bright and able and smart. It means a lot to us as a people to be able, bright, smart, learned.
Yes.
And I just urge you.
And I'll tell you what we're going to have to do now. We need to thank Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois for the Pan-African movement in the first place. And number two, when people tell you that Africans don't want to connect to you, you know that's a lie. Because Ghana welcomes you home. And they want to create a system where you can have dual citizenship. Okay? Know that. Number three, when people tell you about your history and slavery and anything else, just remember, as you listen to the Jews talk to their children, they remind their children over and over again. And sometimes we say, we get tired of hearing about that stuff. We get tired of hearing about slavery. I didn't do it. And white people say, well, that was my forefathers. I didn't do it. The Jews say, we will remind our kids from birth, because never again. Now we got men in prison. That's a form of slavery. We did not say never again. Thank you.
But all I wanted to tell these young people is don't walk out with apathy. Just pick up the charge and go for it. You know you have a struggle, but continue to do it.
Before you go anywhere, have a seat, chill out, hold up a second. We want to just pay a little homage to our elders who have been on the battlefield. In fact, these people in front of you are the reason that most of you are where you're at today, whether you know it or not. And we want to pay some homage to them. I just want to pay my personal homage to the challenge that was laid down and say that Augsburg College will host through the Pan-Afrikan Center a Pan-African mini-conference in the fall. So stay tuned.
We just wanted to take time to recognize and honor our elders. Two of the elders on the panel are my personal mentors, Dr. Josie Johnson. She's the reason I went to the University of Minnesota. She knows that she was the Associate Vice President for Academic Affairs at the time, and she offered me an assistantship in her office, and she sat on my doctoral dissertation committee, and I owe a lot to her. Asked me, and along with 4 other faculty, and I really appreciate her in my life. And then after I got the doctorate, Professor Mahmoud opened his doors to me to watch him teach at Macalester, where I did my practicum before teaching in higher education. So I thank him for his mentoring through many years. And we all have personal stories that we could tell about our elders, but today we want to honor them. We have these dolls for the ladies. They are made by our elder. Isabel Statham, who's also an elder, so it's very befitting. So we have these for the ladies, and for the men, we have the African masks. So we just wanted to say thank you for paving the way, for allowing us to stand on your shoulders, and for making us proud to be African people. Thank you.
the audience, just want to share one thing. Because of Kwame McDonald and Professor Michael L. Kati, I came on set in Pan-African 5. And I was charged up so much that I've been back ever since, 21 years later. I haven't missed for one Pan-African conference that was due to death. So look around you at the people that you are coming into contact with today, and they might be your long, long friends for many, many more Pan-Africans. I'd like to see you around for Pan-African 50.
We want to remind you all to sign up right here with Sister Callie. Right there, sign up right there, put your name, put your information down, and we'll be in touch with you to stay connected and make this continue.
Ashe.
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 It is with honor that I come to you today to introduce to you a very, very special person. And we start out by saying that we were upstairs waiting for someone to come and get us when the next session would begin. And we kind of looked and said, my gosh, you're really running over. So we're sitting there waiting, and you all are sitting down here waiting, which seems to be the plight of the black person. Waiting. Never quite knowing where we're supposed to be, when we're supposed to be there. And all times when we finally get to where we're supposed to be, we don't know what we're supposed to do. But not today. Not today. Today, it gives me honor to bring to you a person like someone in the Bible. He reminds me of Peter. Peter who God loved. But Peter was trite. Peter, God chose to use and to anchor upon Peter's back the whole foundation we are as people. And so the person I'm about to introduce to you reminds me of Peter. I heard about this man in 1989 in Ohio. I was in Columbus, Ohio at a church, Catholic church. And after the priest, a white priest, had finished preaching, he said that he wanted to read a letter from a bishop out of the D.C. area. And I said, So he read this letter and said there was a man who was going around telling black Catholics that we ought to have something for ourselves. And that if anyone was to follow this man and be Catholic too, they would no longer be Catholic. We would be excommunicated. Well, that sent up my antennas. So we got to find out who this man is. And I did. But when I met him, and I read all the stuff before I met him, I read about him. And I said, he sounds exciting. And he reminds me of Peter. And then I had an opportunity to meet him. Arrogant, articulate, handsome, had a girlfriend. You can't be Catholic and a priest and have a girlfriend. Didn't make sense. But he had a sense of peace about him. Kind of what I envisioned Peter was like. And I said, well, if he's serious about what he's doing He'll ordain women. That's how I'll know whether this is a godly thing or a manly thing. And so I went to his ordination as a bishop, and the next thing I heard, there was a call for those who wanted to be ordained. I said, now I see. So I went to the conference. Mostly, the people that were there were mostly women. I said, now the proof is in the pudding. And he showed us a document that they proposed with the new African-American Catholic Church, the ordination of women. I said, oh, this is for real. And I said, he reminds me of Peter. And so then I would go to that point in the Bible where Jesus asked Peter, he says, do you love me? Peter says, of course I do. Jesus says, Peter. And he said again, do you love me, Peter? Peter getting a little indignant. Of course I do. I'll do anything for you. Feed my sheep. And then he asked Peter one more time, because there's divinity in threes. Do you love me? Peter said, yes. Feed my sheep. We have today with us a Peter. Jesus said that when he left, he would send us someone to look over and to help us while we were here on earth. We know that's the Holy Ghost. Jesus manifests himself in God in various ways. And we have in our presence someone that reminds me of Peter. And I can see the Lord asking G. Augustus Stalin, do you love me? And His Excellency saying, yes. And saying, feed my sheep. And then asking him again, do you love me, George? Yes. Feed my sheep. And one more time. Do you love me, G. Augustus Stallings, Jr.? Lord, what else do I have to do? I've given up everything. I've given up all that you have taught me so that I might feed your sheep. And the Lord said, feed my sheep. And I bring to you today a man who has been about the business of feeding the sheep. He is a prophet in our midst. And the real question is, do you know it? He is a Masonic messenger, a Messianic messenger. And the question is, do you believe it? He is a man who said, here I am, send me. Can you comprehend it? I bring to you today a man who is a scholar, Roman taught. He's got the BAs, and all of those D's that go with it. But that's not what makes him special. I bring to you a person that really believes that we are a chosen people, and has gone about and turned his life upside down so that he might practice what the Lord would have him do, which is be about my Father's business. None other, the one and only, a man that has come to free the slaves. We have been talking about freedom all week. in our midst none other than G. Augustus Stallings Jr., founder of the African American Catholic Congregation, my patriarch, my brother, my friend, and a prophet. Let us stand and welcome His Excellency.
Asante Sana. Thank you. Abarigani. Hotel. Peace be with you.
And also with you.
Good afternoon, my sisters and brothers. And I use that term very affectionately, and I use it sincerely, that you are my brothers and you are my sisters. I am George Augustus Stallings Jr. I am George Augustus Stallings Jr. My focus is on the I am, not the George Augustus Stallings Jr. Your focus must be on the I am, not the name that you were given after you had already come here. You existed before you were named. You were and I am. And I think that's very important, and it is very significant to talk about the I am in order to understand and appreciate not only what I have done with my life, but what each of us must do with his or her life in living out the I am. When I say I am George Augustus Stallings Jr., I am first of all stating to you very clearly that before you label me, before you seek to identify me, categorize me, compartmentalize me, dissect me, and probably misunderstand me, that the I am reminds me, or it constantly reminds me that I am a spiritual being. First and foremost, essentially, I am a spiritual being attempting to become human, not a human being attempting to become spiritual. That's right. My identity as a person does not come from an institution. It does not even come, ultimately, it does not even come from a race, even though I was black born and black bred, and when I die, I'll be black dead. Come on. My true identity comes from the divine force that has created me. Whether you call that divine force God, Allah, Elohim, El Shaddad, Jah, Babaluae, whether you call that divine one Jesus, Jehovah, Allah, whatever be the title that we give to that divine force, our identity comes from that sovereign being, not from a name that someone has given us. And that whenever I seek to truly become all that that divine creature has made me in its image and after its likeness, I must go back to that basic question, that basic and fundamental question of identity. And the reason why so many of us have lost our way and why we are marching to the drumbeat of somebody else, the main reason why we live in fear and act out of fear is because we have not dealt with that basic and fundamental question of identity: who am I? Who am I? I don't care what be your academic pursuit, no matter what career you seek to pursue or to engage in, what work you may engage in until you deal with that basic fundamental question of identity. Everything else about you will be superficial. It will be accidental, not essential. And we're talking about philosophical terminology, that which is essential versus that which is accidental. That which is essential to you is your sense of self-identity. Who am I? Right. Am I who I really am? Yes.
question, who am I? Who are you? And see, we can forget about that when we get in the context of all of this. When we get caught up. When we fall asleep at the wheel. See, when you fall asleep at the wheel, you're no longer operating the vehicle. You are no longer the driver of your life. And most of us, unfortunately, have fallen asleep at the wheel. And that therefore, someone else is the master of our fate. And someone else is the captain of our souls. And we cannot begin to approach life from the viewpoint of simply being the owner and controller over my own destiny. Because I don't know who I am. And before I even deal with why I did what I did, back on July 2nd, 1989, Brother Diop, I've got to first of all ask myself, am I secure enough in my sense of identity, self-identity, that no matter what they say about me, no matter what they may write about me, no matter how they might categorize me, when I'm done at the end of the day, I can still look at the man in the mirror and know that I did what was right and that I can live with what I did. That's what's important. I am a spiritual being. And as a spiritual being, I have all kinds of powers. As a spiritual being, I can name myself, speak for myself, and define myself without someone else naming me, speaking for me, and defining me. The second principle of the Nguzo Saba, Kujichakulia, self-determination. Many of us cannot even enter into that realm of self-determination because we haven't dealt with that first question of identity or self-identity. Who am I? Who am I? We read it in Philippians chapter 4, verse 13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. You know, see, I'm a man of color. I'm an African. As you've heard so many say, I am an African. I have a holistic approach to life. For far too long, I was victimized by a Eurocentric hegemonic cosmogony. Let us break it down. Let's make it plain. I'm going to make it plain for you now. I was victimized by a Eurocentric hegemonic cosmogony, cosmogony, which means that I was very much influenced by a white world-dominated world viewpoint. A white world view dominated by the whole European notions of what life is and who I am and what I had to respond to and what drumbeat I had to march to. I was educated in the finest European institutions in the world, at least for someone who was studying to become a Roman Catholic priest. I, a black man, seeking to become a Roman Catholic priest. A Roman Catholic black man, which is an oxymoron. I did not realize that for the first 41 years of my life, I was living an oxymoronic existence. They're just incompatible. When you really get down to questions of identity, when I ask myself, who am I? And then when I move to that second question, am I really who I am? Yeah. Am I really who I am, or am I just faking it? Am I just trying to do what is necessary to get over? Am I really who I am? And if I really am who I am, then I can find a reason. I can find a way to do the things that I do to respond to the needs, to meet the needs that I have. And when you get to the whole question of creating an autonomous, independent, and Catholic alternative to Roman Catholicism, I have to ask myself, am I really who I am if I stay within Roman Catholicism?
when it does not mirror me, when it does not reflect me, when it does not respond to my needs, when it does not allow me to see Jesus as a man who looks like me. Since not only historically he looked like me, not only historically was Jesus happy, nappy, but that in reality, the image of Jesus has been distorted. The historical Jesus has been distorted by Eurocentric cultural hegemony. Which means that the real way that Jesus actually looked as a man of history is not even being accurately presented as authentic by those who say they are in control. But no one is in control of me. I am in control of myself. Since I am in control of myself, I can therefore dictate the terms, not only by which I will worship God, but how I will articulate my understanding of God within the context of religion, which is nothing more than a formalized, institutional expression of one's spirituality. That's all religion is. That's all religion is. It's an institutionalized expression of a people's spirituality. And not only that, religion is not God-made. Religion is man-made. God never instituted a religion. Not the God I know. And if you know your Bible, if you know your faith, your religion, you'll know that God did not create it. God did not invent it. Man did. Woman.
That's right. That's right.
Don't be blaming that on the woman.
Don't be blaming that on the woman. Amen, amen, and woman too. but somehow we've grown into this thinking that since God must have created a church, a religion, and when it is applied in this particular instance to what I did back on July 2nd, 1989, in establishing Imani Temple, African American Catholic Congregation, as an independent and autonomous Catholic church, the whole question is, does George Augustus Stallings Jr. have the right to do that? And can it be just as legitimate? Can it be just as valid? Can it be just as real as the Roman Catholic Church? Can he do that? The question now is not can I do it, I did it. The question is not is it valid, is it legitimate? The question is by whose standards? Are you asking that question? It may not be legitimate for you, but you're not a part of it. But it's very legitimate and valid for me because it is an expression of me. It is an expression of who I am as a spiritual being. That I am not only created in God's image and after God's likeness, but I am a God. And you are a God. Not because I said so, but because the Bible says it. Psalm 82. And then go to the New Testament, John chapter 10, verse 34, where Jesus says, in your word, namely in the Old Testament, in the Hebrew Scriptures, it says, you are a God. Why are you condemning me? Because I say I am the Son of God. So the reality is that we have forgotten about who we are. We have forgotten that not only have we been created in God's image and after God's likeness, but we have even forgotten that since we have been created in that image and in that likeness, we possess the qualities of God, the characteristics of God. That the very fact that we in death, life is changed, not ended, is a clear indication that we possess the qualities or characteristics of God when we speak about the eternal nature of God. That there are a lot of attributes that we possess as having been created in God's image and after God's likeness that we have yet to acknowledge, that we have yet to appreciate, and therefore we become impotent. We cannot produce. We cannot plant. And since we cannot plant, we cannot harvest. And since we cannot harvest, we cannot feed. And since we cannot feed, we cannot sustain. And since we cannot sustain, people will die. And the reality of the whole point is that each one of us has the capacity to not only define God in our own language, but even to create those institutions that reflect our understanding or our whole notion of God, because it goes back to the whole question of, who am I? And that I don't have to bow down to a God that does not look like me. And I don't have to listen to the condemnation of folks who don't understand what I'm going through. And folks who cannot appreciate that I've only done what they have done. And not only that, for me and for my people, it's better than what they have done for us. Because Imani Temple, and our denominational, all of our churches are known as Imani Temple, Imani being Kiswahili for faith, because we believe that we have come this far by faith, leaning on the Lord, trusting in His holy word. He's never failed us yet. Oh, can't turn around, because we've come this far by faith. Amen. And our denominational title is the African American Catholic Congregation. We believe that we have the God-given right. It is our God-given right to create and establish a church for ourselves that allows us to give a religious expression of our spirituality. And knowing that it is only in the context of Christianity, it is only Jesus who saves. Man cannot save me. Woman cannot save me. Man did not die on Calvary for me. Jesus died for me. And in that particular context, I can't get away from that. You see, because, you see, for me as an African, as a black man, I don't separate my spirituality from my humanity. You know, we are, as people of color, as people of the African diaspora, we are a spiritual people. We are a religious people. That God is very important and God is very significant to us. And I don't do a God thing 2 hours a day. I don't do a God thing 2 hours a week. That's not how, see, that, you know, because I just don't eat physical food for 2 hours on Sunday. And since I am essentially spiritual and not human, I've got to make sure that I feed my spiritual self, not just as well, but even more so than I feed my physical self. You see, because there's a difference between being spiritual and being religious. And there's a difference between spirituality and religion. And the reason why a whole lot of folks are turned off and are not focusing on their spirituality is because they have equated their spirituality with a religion. And since they don't go to church and don't see a need to go to church because they see church folk as being hypocrites, or churches as being hypocritical, or churches not really meeting their needs, they don't deal to their spirituality because they link their spirituality with their religion. And that's why they cannot be productive. That's why they cannot be change agents, because they have not connected with their spiritual selves. That has everything to do with questions of self-identity. Who am I? Am I really who I am? And am I all that I ought to be? That's the real question for me. Am I all that I ought to be? I could have been very content. I could have been very happy staying up in the Roman Catholic Church. I had it made in the shade. Brother Diop, I didn't have any worries. My job was secure. I was doing whatever I wanted to do. I even named my own job. They didn't know what to do with me. They said, so you decide what you want to do with yourself. I like that. I said, I'm on my way now. They don't know what to do with me, so they said, now you give yourself a job title. So I said, I'm going to give myself a job title. I'm going to be an evangelist after I had pastored for 12 years. And they didn't know what to do with me after I had pastored. They had worked so hard to get me out of the church because I was doing these innovative, creative, and imaginative things, having black folks deal with their spirituality and not their religion. Yes. So they said, well, we can't control him, we can't handle him, so let's try to get him up out of the church. So by the time they worked for 5 or 6 years to get me out, I got tired of fighting them, trying to get me out. So I just said, I'm leaving. I just said, well, you know, why don't you just give me another job? They said, well, we don't know what to give you. Why don't you give yourself a job? I said, okay, I'll give myself evangelist, since that's what I specialized in graduate school in theology. So I did that for a year. But I wasn't happy then because I was running away. I was running away from my own sense of identity. I was running away from this whole notion that, you know, I gotta just play along to get along. Well, I couldn't really find my true identity because I felt, you know, how do I show my gratitude and appreciation for all that they've done for me? Sent me to the west point of the Roman Catholic Church, to Rome, Italy, studied in Rome at the Vatican for 4.5 years, near the Vatican. Nobody really studies at the Vatican, you study near it, you know. You may study about it. And so I said, you know, how do I rationalize? I'm thinking, how do I rationalize leaving this when I know it's not working for me? But that was the whole problem. I was trying to rationalize it. And when you get to the realm of the spiritual, you can't rationalize. You cannot rationalize. You got to do what the heart says do. You got to go where the Spirit leads. And so what I was doing on behalf of black Catholics, those who wanted to be in the Catholic Church, but who wanted to maintain an appreciation of their culture, their history, their race, he said, let's create our own expression of Catholicism, since initially Catholicism was African anyhow. It wasn't Roman. The oldest Christian church is not the Roman church, it's the Coptic church in Northeast Africa, in Ethiopia. The Europeans just stole it, appropriated it, repackaged it, recycled it, and then claimed it as their own, which is not a coincidence when we look at other things that Europeans have stolen from us and claimed that they invented. So we created this church. We created a church that would be inclusive, that would be responsive to the needs of African Americans. We created this church in the midst of all kinds of opposition. I remember back in the summer, in the summer of 1989, the only thing that was going on, the only thing that was happening in the world was Tiananmen Square. Those young people being slaughtered in Tiananmen Square. And so the media were looking for a headline, a new headline. And so what happened when Imani Temple was founded, that was the headline they wanted. So it was splashed across the front page of every major newspaper on Monday, July 3rd, 1989, after we had created Imani Temple. And everyone was saying, you know, he can't do this. This is not right. He can't go up against the most powerful religious, financial, cultural institution in the world. He just can't do it. He cannot create something that he's trying to say black folks should join and that they should leave something else to become a part of what he's doing. And you know, they tried to personalize it. This is not about black folks finding their own religious destiny, but it's about George Stallings. They tried to make it a George Augustus Stallings issue, which is what your oppressor will always seek to do. When they want to come into your midst, they want to come into your ranks and cause you to mistrust and fear your own. It's the Willie Lynch syndrome all over again. It recycles itself every decade. When we have black leaders who rise up and seek to liberate our people from the shackles of oppression, and all of a sudden they become the issue. Martin Luther King Jr. became the issue. Malcolm X became the issue. Elijah Muhammad became the issue. Ralph Abernathy became the issue. The only reason why they didn't make Rosa Parks the real issue is because, first of all, she was a woman. And they said she must not have known what she was really doing. She was just tired, that's all. That's why she just didn't get up. She was just tired. We know if it had been some other day, old Rosa would have gotten on up and said, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, and gone on about her business. But you see, so they were kind of polite to Rosa. And then Martin came on the scene. So he became the object of their attacks. And it happens every time that whenever we try to create institutions that are going to meet our needs, other folks want to sit in judgment. We as people of color have been brainwashed and conditioned to see ourselves as inferior and inadequate. Never good enough to validate ourselves or even to accept what we create and establish as being just as good as its white counterpart. There exists an impoverished, enslaved mentality amongst us that seeks the approval or the commendation of the white establishment before we feel justified in taking ownership and control over our own destiny. You've heard fear defined as false evidence that appears real. And that's our fear, is that we cannot create our own institutions. We cannot establish our own businesses. Our own African-centered counseling centers. Our own schools. And even when we create them, we're trying to compete. We feel like we gotta compete. We've got to be just as good as they are. But there would be no need to compete if they met our needs. The Imani Temple African American Catholic Congregation, the AACC, is not a Roman Catholic Church in blackface. No, it's something very different. We're doing theology. You know, in the Roman Catholic Church, they begin by making the sign of the cross and saying, in the name of the Father. And this is not to condemn the Roman Catholic Church. If it works for you, let it work. But if it don't work for you, run from it. Come on. That's the song saying, you better run from it, run from it. You run from it. Run for it, that's what it says. Run for Imani Temple. The whole point is that, you know, for example, they say they make the sign of the cross in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, amen. That's good. That's the whole notion of Jesus on the cross. The cross is the power of salvation. But in Imani Temple, in all of our churches, we say, I am one with God. Right now. I want people to know from the very onset of our worship that they are one with God, because it's about identity. And as they are one with God, then they can realize that they can do the things that God does. You know, in the Roman Catholic Church, before you receive communion, you say, Lord, I am not worthy. The priest says, this is the Lamb of God. This is Jesus who takes away the sins of the world. Happy are those who are called to his supper. Just before you receive communion, just before you receive the greatest gift of all, we in the Catholic Church believe that the Eucharist and Holy Communion is the greatest gift of all. Jesus gives himself to us sacramentally. Even though it's bread under the form of bread and wine, we believe that it is the body and blood of Christ. We believe that as Catholics, no matter what, the adjectival descriptor that precedes Catholic. And yet, at the same time, in the Roman Catholic Church, just before we receive the greatest gift of all, we say, Lord, I am not worthy. I am not worthy to receive you, but only say the word, and I shall be healed. You know, we are doing theology. We don't have to accept that statement. We say, no, I believe it. Lord, I believe it. When the priest says, this is the Lamb of God, this is Jesus who takes away the sins of the world, we say, I believe it, and I receive it. Lord, make me worthy more and more each day. Because again, I am not worthy is an oxymoron. Think about it. I am not worthy. So God, if you say I am not worthy, you say God is not worthy. Because the I am is God. And when you say I am not worthy, you've already canceled out the whole thing right there. When will you be worthy?
Come on now.
What will it take to make you worthy? You are worthy because you are a Messiah. You are an anointed one. That's why Jesus asked Peter, who do men say I am? That was a fundamental question. Who do men say I am? Who? The highest law in the land of Kemet, know thyself. Shakespeare came along 1,000 centuries later and said, to thine own self be true.
That's right.
He probably thought he came up with that saying himself. Part of the appropriation process. You know, Jesus says, who do men say I am? Some say you're Elijah. Some say you're Jeremiah. Some say you're one of the prophets come back from the dead. Jesus said, well, I'm not concerned about who they say I am. You follow me. You say you belong to me. You say you're a part of me. Who do you say I am? And Peter says, you are the Christ. You are the Messiah. You are the anointed one. You are the promised one of ages. Jesus says, not mere man, mere mortal man has not revealed this to you. Let me tell you something. Man will not reveal to you, woman will not reveal to you that you are divine, that there is the divine in you, that you are a spiritual being. Man, woman will not do that. That's right. Because man and woman have to keep you down, have to keep you suppressed, have to keep you thinking that you don't have any divine rights of entitlement. That's why we are in the condition that we're in right now. And I'm not, and I heard you say it earlier, I'm not going to wait for George W. Bush, to do for me what I've got to do for myself. I don't care who the president is. It would have been too much different with Al Gore. Maybe there would have been more with Gore, but not that much more. Because he has to represent all of the people. You can't sit around and wait for the president. You can't sit around around and wait. I know I'm sounding like I'm a Republican. A Republican I am not. I don't believe that I should sit around and wait for somebody else to do for me what I should do for myself and I have the power to do. I don't believe that my life is going to be fulfilled. I don't believe that I'm going to be all that I ought to be if I have to be subjected to the standards of others, if I have to somehow take on their value system, which doesn't work for me. And the value systems of this nation do not work for, not only do they not work for people of color, they don't work for most people. That's why we're all going to hell in a handbasket. And the difficulty with it is some of us seem to be enjoying the trip. We have to have a different way of seeing things, a different way of looking at each other. When I look at you, I don't want to try to look at who you are as a person. I want to start trying to look for the I am that is within you. Amen. You see, because when I look for the God that is within you, I can respect you. Right. Even though I may not understand you, even though I don't agree with you, at least I can respect you and I can love you because the I am is in you just as much as it is in me. Yes. And I will not criticize, I will not condemn, I will not judge you if I can look for the I am in you. And I can realize what you can accomplish and what you can achieve and how you don't have to walk around with your head bowed down in sorrow. And the problem is that we have done just that. You know, one of my favorite singers, and Brother Diop knows it because he's heard me speak before. You know, one of my favorite singers is Shirley Murdoch. Shirley has a song, As We Lay, and then there was a redux of that song by Kelly Price. Shirley Murdoch says, it's morning. And we slept the night away. It happened. Now we both want to turn back the hands of time. Yes, we've stolen this moment. But we forgot about one simple fact. We both belong to someone else as we slept the night away. As we lay. Didn't think about tomorrow as we lay. As we lay, didn't think about the price we have to pay. No. Shirley says we should have counted up the cost. But instead, we got lost in a second, in a minute, in an hour as we lay. Didn't think about tomorrow as we lay. Hey. It's morning for us. It's morning for us. It's morning for us because we have got to come to the point, to the realization that we have to lay claim to our own destiny. It's morning for us because we've got to begin to get more in tune with our spirituality. And that we've got to come to realize that there's something very dynamic, there's something very energetic, there's something very powerful in coming to know who I am. And to know that God don't make no junk. And to know that I am beautiful. And to know that I don't have to make any excuses for how anybody looks at me or how anybody criticizes me. To know that I am somebody. You didn't need Jesse Jackson to say I am somebody. Just think how many of us had to wait till Jesse immortalized those words before we got a feeling that we were somebody. No, you ought to know that you are somebody. Before you came out of your mother's womb, you were somebody. Before you took your first breath, you were somebody. You've got to get into that. You've got to deshackle yourself from these whole man-made, human-imposed limitations placed upon you. And you've got to begin to create for yourselves institutions that will meet your needs. You know, it's morning. We've been sleeping. We've been sleeping with the enemy. And a lot of times that enemy has been ourselves. We've been sleeping with the enemy. Because we haven't taken advantage of our true selves, our true nature. Because we were more caught up in a religion than a redeemer. We have not done what we can do to change the face of the earth. You know, we've got to do that. It's morning. It's morning. We've been too much time sleeping with the enemy as we lay, not counting the price we'd have to pay. You know, we're getting caught up in a second and a minute and an hour. We're so narcissistic, so self-centered. So caught up in our own situation, in self-aggrandizement, that we don't have the time to realize that we've got to do some things to help somebody else as we pass along. If I can help somebody as I pass along, if I can cheer somebody with a word or a song, if I can tell somebody he or she is traveling wrong, then my living shall not be in vain. Your life was not given just for you. My life was not given just for me. It was to help somebody. It was to free somebody. So the shackles on my feet won't let me dance. Won't let me stand. Somebody's got to take the shackles off. And the worst shackles, as Dr. Naeem Akbar will probably tell you tonight at the 7:30 hour, are the images and chains of psychological slavery. Yeah. That's why you've heard so many of the speakers say we're still enslaved. We haven't stepped out. Amen. You know, I walked in here a few minutes before, you know, I was scheduled to be on at 3, so I came in about 3:15, and the panel was revved up. I mean, the panel was really on. And I walked in and I said, let me just go in and get myself tuned up. And it only took me about 2 minutes. I said, well, I'm hearing the same old story. Because it's a generational problem. That we've got to keep on addressing it until somebody finally gets the message of what we're trying to say. Right. That if it's going to be, it's up to you and me. Right. The only ones who are going to save us, for us, from us, is us. We've got to create those institutions for our people that will make a change, that will make a difference. Right. And you've got to see how you can allow your lives to be used for service to the community, and to destroy some of these vestiges of an oppressive way of thinking and acting and of doing things. Step out of the box. Don't just, and I heard it said, just don't come here to get a degree, because after you get that piece of paper, you still won't be able to get a job. You may have a better chance, but you still won't be equal. I heard someone say, we're not equal. We're not. Stop fooling yourselves. But you will become equal when you take ownership and control over your own destiny. When you're not afraid about what other people will say because you do the right thing. I've got enough enemies and enough critics in the Roman Catholic Church. Let me tell you, I'm the most feared black man in the country when it comes to the Roman Catholic Church. In fact, the most feared man in the whole Roman Catholic Church. They're scared of me. I don't know why they're scared of me. I'm not trying to mess up their thing. I'm just trying to do my thing. You know? I'm trying to prepare something for my children and my children's children. Another one of my great loves is a song by George Benson, The Greatest Love of All. Where it says, I believe the children are our future. Because see, I give it up on some of us. Some of us are so old, tired, worn out. I mean, I've been in the struggle too long. You know, we're tired of fighting. We're tired of having to hold up the bloodstained banner. See, so I'm not investing in a lot of you old folk. You know, and I'm not talking about old folk. I'm not talking about aging. I'm talking about those who have yet to acquire a whole new spiritual way of thinking. Because see, some of us are 21 and we're old. Come on. Because we're thinking those same old thoughts, doing those same old things, going along to get along. We're caught in a rut. We don't want to make a difference. So I'm concerned, I'm talking about, I'm concerned about our children. The church said, I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside. Give them a sense of pride to make it easier. Let the children's laughter remind us of how we used to be. Everybody's searching for a hero. People need someone to look up to. I never found anyone to fulfill my needs. A lonely place to be. And so I've learned to depend on me. I decided long ago never to walk in anyone's shadow. If I fail, if I succeed, at least I'll live as I do, no matter what they take from me. They can't take away my dignity, because the greatest love is happening to me. I found the greatest love inside of me. The greatest love is easy to achieve. Learning to love yourself is the greatest love of all. And if by chance that perfect place that you've been dreaming of leads you to a lonely place, find your strength in love. If you love yourself, if you appreciate yourself. Ralph Ellison, the great African-American novelist, writer, who in his monumental work, The Invisible Man, says, when you discover who you are, you'll be free. He says, when I discover who I am, I'll be free.
Right.
There's a Yoruba proverb that says, you are as much as you are right now.
Well,
You are as much as you are right now. And when you come to grips with that, you can create institutions. When you come to grips with that, you'll know that you have a divine right to reflect a God who looks like you. That you can bow down to a black Christ in a black church. When you know who you are, you're not afraid to create something for your people that will nurture and sustain them, and that will not only be for you, but for your children and your children's children. When you are not afraid, when you know who you are, you can then change this world. You can change this community. And this world will be a better place because you have passed through it. And it is no longer the same. Now, some folks will accuse you of ego tripping. Because that's the way they got to try to reduce you to the most common denominator so that you'll even hate yourself, have a sense of low self-esteem and low self-worth. That's why you got to be anchored in your who-ness. So when the enemies come and the detractors get in your way, you will not lose your focus. You will not lose your way. But you owe it to your people. We as people of the universe, black, white, polka dot for that matter, we owe it to each other. To not only challenge institutions that do not meet specific needs of people, but to do something about it. The last thing I want to say is, I criticized the Roman Catholic Church for years because I didn't think it was doing right by black people. And I got tired, like Van Nieuwhoven said, I got sick and tired of being sick and tired. And so I said, I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to take everything that they've given me and do something about it. Imani Temple is not for every Catholic, and it's not for every person. And surely it's not for every black who is in the Roman Catholic Church, because see, they're still in bondage. I will say this very boldly and clearly, and I'm going to take my seat. Like I said, I don't see how anyone in his or her right mind, I don't see how any black person in his or her right mind who has a true sense of self can stay in the Roman Catholic Church. I don't see how it's possible. I don't see how it's possible. Because you hate yourself when you cannot embrace what is your own. You hate yourself when you cannot be the masters of your fate and the captains of your soul. You hate yourself when you got to hide under someone else's shadow and can't come out into the light so that your true self can be revealed. I don't see how it's going to be. I'm not going to get up there and just harangue folk about it, but I'm going to say it to artists such as you and some other people. I don't see how you can work that out. I do not see how we can process it any longer. The reason why we have gone along with it for so long is because we never had anybody to stand up and challenge us. But it's time to challenge now.
All right.
It's time to challenge. We were in segregation for centuries until somebody finally stood up and said, that ain't right. But someone said, oh, no, you can't do that now. You can't be going up in there in Charlie's house and think you can go up in there and go through the front door. You got to go through that side door, that back door. Now, I know your money's just as green as theirs, and it has the same denominational values there, but you can't go through the front door. Why can you not go through the front door? Because they said you cannot go through the front door. Why can you not go through the front door? Because that's the way things have been for centuries. You cannot go through the front door. You cannot go in there to eat. So when you go from Florida to New York to Detroit to Ohio to see your folks, you pack your lunch. Because you cannot stop at a restaurant or you'll be arrested. Just because it was that way for centuries, does that mean that it was right? Does that mean we had to go along with it? No. Somebody had to stand up and say enough is enough. This has got to change. And when they said enough was enough and things had got to change, we criticized them. We found everything wrong. We sided with the oppressors and condemned them. We found something wrong with Martin when he stood up. We found something wrong with Malcolm. We have now canonized Malcolm. The very folks who condemned him are now his greatest proponents. They're the ones who have gathered in the halls of heaven and canonized him. But yet they couldn't stand his guts when he challenged them. Or we can sanitize our leaders after they're dead. We appreciate them after they're gone, but we don't understand what they're saying to us when they speak truth to power. And the reality is, my sisters and brothers, is that we've got to create our own institution. We're the world's greatest consumers. You've heard it, I'm sure somebody said it here. All right. $400 to $500 billion, and yet we're not producing. Something is wrong. What's wrong with that picture? We are not the masters of our fate. We're not the captains of our souls. Why aren't we creating our own businesses? Why don't we support our own doctors? We still believe that the white man's ice is colder and his sugar sweet. We still believe it. It is ingrained within the psychic depths of our spirits. That somehow we believe it. We may not want to admit it, but we believe it. And the reason why we believe it is because we haven't created an alternative. Because we haven't made a difference. So I am here to tell you, I am here as a living witness that, I'm thankful and appreciative to all the Roman Catholic Church did for me. In fact, that's why God just put them in my path. I thank God for them. I celebrate them. I thank God for everything they did for me, for everything they gave me. But it was for a reason, it was for a purpose. You see? God has a plan. God has a plan. God has a design on your life. And you are black, you can't get away from God. I don't care how much you try to say you don't want to talk about God. You can't get God out of your system because God is in your blood. But I don't care what color you are, you can't get away from God. You can't, because you get away from God, you're getting away from yourself. And you don't have to, I know you may say I'm crazy, and I'm a priest, a bishop priest, and all patriarch and all that, but you don't have to go to church to connect with your spirituality. In fact, some of you might be better not going. Because you might run into so much confusion and so much mess that you lose sight of what you're supposed to be focusing upon. I would like for you to go to church. I would like for you to join, and I would like for you to pay your tithe. I'm not trying to go out of business. I'm trying to move into business. I'm not establishing faith communities around the country and the world so that people don't come. Now, I want you to come, but if I'm going to be a hindrance to you, if I'm going to be a stumbling block, if I'm going to not enable you to break yokes and to pull down strongholds, you don't need to come. Because I'm going to further enslave you. But if you want to be free, I say to blacks who want Catholicism, if you want to be free, if you want to celebrate God out of the depths of your spirituality, out of your sense of culture, if you want to remember the ancestors, if you want to invoke their spirits, if you want to pour libations. Hey, women, if you want to become deacons, priests, and bishops. Hey, women, if you want to have a right to exercise the supremacy of your conscience when it comes to your body. And if you want to be if you want to be a part of a church that accepts you as you are and not criticize you, condemns you, or judges you, then Imani Temple might be the place for you. But I'm just here to just simply say that's what I'm gonna sit down now. I'm through. I have said it. I'm through. God said it. That settles it. Now deal with it. In other words, God says I am anointed. God says I am a God. God says I am beautiful. God says I am Messiah. God says I can do all three things. God said it. That settles it. Now deal with it. That's not my problem. That's your problem. I don't have any problems with what I've done. I don't lose any sleep. I don't have to take any drugs. I don't need NyQuil. I don't need Somanex. I don't need all those other inducements to make me feel good or to make me better. But I feel complete. I feel whole because I am at peace with myself. I really am. I am at peace with myself, and I'm at peace with what I've done, and I don't make any excuses for it. I don't apologize. I neither want nor seek the endorsement or the approval of anyone for what I know I have a right to do because I am a God. Because I am a Messiah. I am a Messiah. I'm not the God. Not the B-T-H-E. You are not the God. We're not the anointed one, but we are a God. And we are an anointed person. And when you start seeing yourself like that, you can then be all that God has called you to be. I thank you for listening to me. I'm not asking you to agree with me now. I'm not asking you to agree with me. I'm not used to say, we're not going to open up the doors of the church. I'm not trying to open up the door. This is not, let whosoever will come right now. And since I'm not opening up the doors of the church, I can't even take up a collection. I can't take an offering. Now that's really hurting me. I can't take an offering. I just want you to know that I love you you, and I respect you, and I appreciate you, and I thank you for giving me an audience to just simply share with you a little piece of my story. And I know that God is not through with me yet. And when God gets through with me, whatever blemishes are there, He'll purify. When God gets through with me, anything that ain't right, He'll make it right. And when God gets through with me, I pray and hope that I will have helped somebody as I pass along. And that somebody can truly say that because George Augustus Stallings Jr. passed through this life, through this world, that it's a better place than it was when he came. And I will say, to God be the glory for the things he has done. George Augustus Stallings did not do it. The I am that is in George Augustus Stallings made it happen. Peace.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stone. We have evaluations. We would like to have Bishop come back year after year. Perhaps he's going to address us again during the conference, but please fill out evaluations and I'll collect them at the back. 6 o'clock, dinner upstairs. Any other announcements anybody would like to make? Okay, thank you.